The Holy Gospel according to Matthew.
Glory to you, O Lord.
6 days later, Jesus took with him Peter and James and his brother John, and led them up a high mountain by themselves. And Jesus was transfigured before them, and his face shone like the sun, and his clothes became dazzling white. Suddenly there appeared to them Moses and Elijah talking with him. Then Peter said to Jesus, "Lord, it is good for us to be here. If you wish, I will make 3 dwellings, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." While Peter was still speaking, suddenly a bright cloud overshadowed them. And from the cloud a voice said, "This is my Son, the beloved, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him." When the disciples heard this, they fell to the ground and were overcome by fear. But Jesus came and touched them, saying, "Get up, do not be afraid." And when they looked up, they saw no one except Jesus alone. As they were coming down the mountain, Jesus ordered them, "Tell no one about the vision until after the Son of Man has been raised from the dead." Hear what the Spirit is saying to the church. I have a confession to make. I hate the Transfiguration. Okay, maybe that's a little harsh, but maybe more to the point, I hate it because it just seems so hard to grasp and make any possible meaning out of. But I love what the Transfiguration means. Maybe I'm splitting hairs here, but bear with me. 6 days later, Jesus took with him Peter and James and his brother John and led them up a high mountain. 6 days after what? In the preceding chapter in Matthew's Gospel, we encounter a memorable scene. Peter, who has confessed that Jesus is the Messiah, is called blessed by Jesus and is told that he is the rock upon which the church will be built. But lest Peter's ego should get the best of him, only a few verses later, Jesus sharply rebukes him, "Get behind me, Satan," for his misunderstanding of what exactly the kind of Messiah Jesus would be. The details there are not so important right now, but suffice it to say that it probably was a confusing, upsetting time for Peter. And so it's not difficult to imagine why Peter is the one who, upon witnessing this strange and wonderful spectacle on the mountaintop, suggests they build tents and stay a while. So what happened on the mountain that was so awe-inspiring that left Peter grasping at the opportunity to make it last? Karl Rahner, who's one of the greatest Catholic theologians of the 20th century, once argued for the rediscovery of the mystical foundations of Christianity as vital to the church's survival. Mystic, by one definition, meaning one who has moved from mere belief systems to actual inner experience. By that way of thinking, what happened on the mountain, all that was witnessed by Peter and the other 2 disciples, was a mystical experience. Something so inexplicable and beyond all comprehension that it simply had to be experienced. I also suspect that these sorts of mystical moments often come to us in situations like the one Peter found himself in the midst of the turmoil and the confusion of everyday life. The closest thing that I've ever had to a mystical experience happened a few years ago when I was at a small group leaders retreat with the church I used to attend. This retreat was designed for those who, like me, were about to embark on small group leadership for the first time, as well as a refresher course for the seasoned leaders. And it was those seasoned leaders I remember looking at that day and thinking how inadequate I seemed for this work compared to them. At one point, we were given some free time to roam about the sanctuary for contemplation and prayer. Never having been great at spiritual practices which require me to sit in silence for any length of time, I found an empty pew in the sanctuary, popped open a pew Bible to Exodus, and just started reading to pass the time. I was reading the familiar story of Moses encountering Yahweh in the burning bush, giving excuse after excuse about what Yahweh had asked him to do. "Who am I that I should go?" Moses asks. Exactly, I thought. Who am I that I should lead this group? Who do I think I am? And Yahweh answers Moses, "I will be with you." It was as though those words were being spoken directly to me that day. I will be with you. And they were overcome with fear, because sometimes mystical experiences can also be downright terrifying. Muhammad, the founder of Islam, found himself in a state of shock, doubt, and fear the night he received the first revelation of the Quran. According to tradition, he alternated between feeling at best that it was all a hallucination, or at worst, that he had been confronted by an evil spirit. Terrifying because mystical experiences like Muhammad's and Peter's and the disciples and even mine mean something is changing. In Matthew's Gospel, the Transfiguration comes as a decisive turning point from Jesus' public ministry to what he would soon face in Jerusalem. Events that we too will soon recount as we inch closer to Holy Week. Peter and the other disciples in this moment of change need the memory of what is happening to stay with them because of what is about to happen. Like Peter and the disciples, we constantly find ourselves in states of change, right? Everything from job to family to personal transitions. They're in-between moments of both holding on and letting go. Oftentimes, at once both excruciating and exciting. And I suspect that that's the whole point of the Transfiguration. Permission to be in those in-between moments of holding on and letting go. The Transfiguration as a mystical experience acknowledges this tension, offering something to hold on to as we let go. As they were coming down the mountain. The Transfiguration is more about the journey down the mountain than the mountaintop experience itself. Yes, it's about coming down the mountain to the valley below, but let's also not overemphasize the destination at the expense of downplaying the journey. With Transfiguration Sunday, we mark a turning toward the Lenten season, a journey in which we call to mind the Paschal mystery of Christ's death and resurrection. But as one theologian reminds us, until we have personally lost our own foundation and then experienced God upholding us so that we come out even more alive on the other side, the theological affirmation of the Paschal mystery is little understood and not essentially transformative. In other words, the journey is a thing to be personally experienced, even savored. I don't think that Peter and the other disciples could have ever conceived intellectually of what was going to happen on the mountain that day. It had to be experienced. And having been experienced, it changes them. The glory of the mountaintop moment, the mystical experience of God's enduring presence, gives them strength for the journey ahead. It gives strength for the moment, for moments of change, and for leaping into an unknown future. Letting go of all control and certainty, while at once holding on to the memory of what has been and looking to the hope of what can be and what will be.